The North Korean hackers finally took a fat L, ladies and gentlemen. Now, of course, to understand, North Korea is an interesting topic for me on my channel. I've covered their propaganda, but being a person that covers cybersecurity stuff from time to time, for me, anytime I see North Korea's hacking group, which I made a video on, by the way, that you should check out, absolutely took a fat L here. Now, to understand, North Korea, despite being a poorer country, despite being one of the most harshest totalitarianist regimes, you don't really need a lot of money to train hackers. They have great relationships with China, or the Russian Federation, and so they can send some of their bright and best all the way over to get the best training with the best equipment imaginable. And then they can use that equipment to attack so many targets all over the world, it's not even funny. So to start off the story with, they were responsible for a supply chain attack. And what was their target? 3CX? Now you might be like, whoa, Muda, what's going on? What is 3CX? Now, if you ever worked in any corporate environment, small business, maybe you were a telemarketer at some point, whatever, you've probably used 3CX. They're a phone system, video conferencing tool, ability to share files. It's a pretty standard tool that over 600,000 companies use. I mean, they proudly state it right over here. Not only do they state it, they call themselves the #1 communication system. In fact, they work for Toyota, Coca-Cola, BMW, Air France, and oh god, I broke a controller. Now, unfortunately, on April 1st, hell of a day to put out a serious security incident update, by the way, we regret to inform you that our company has become victim to an attack on our product and the larger supply chain. Our highest priority is to be transparent in sharing details on what actions we are taking in response to this incident. So of course they hired an outside firm to look into it. They're conducting an investigation, so we still have no idea how bad this really is. But of course, they also gave us some scripts that you can use to effectively get rid of this nonsense off of your system, which a lot of people have been kind of getting into, especially big companies, because anytime you're part of a supply chain attack, you have to start firing up the red flags. Now, what's a supply chain attack? Well, somewhere in the middle of the software development, some sneaky Pete sneaks a bad piece of malware, and then it takes a while to figure out where you got infected, how you got infected, and sometimes how long you've been infected. Remember a while back last year, we looked at SolarWinds and how bad of a supply chain attack that was? This is kind of the same thing. Except thankfully, the North Korean hackers over here actually ended up failing. While they had 600,000 companies that pretty much used this software, it turns out fewer than 10 machines were actually being targeted, and almost every single one of them were all related to cryptocurrencies. So to explain how this attack worked, it wasn't the actual program that was actually hacked. So the actual exe file, the 3CX desktop file that people would install and run, wasn't the actual program that contained malicious code. The way that the supply chain was targeted was these hackers from North Korea actually shipped malicious DLL files. So the DLL files in this case were ffmpeg.dll, which is actually super duper common. You probably have this sitting somewhere on your computer, and you actually use this on a daily basis on your computer, I bet. You've also got D3D compiler 47.dll. Also very common. I had to install this just to play some video games, last week. So again, these DLL files contained malicious code that allowed these North Korean hackers to spread malware. So here's where I'm going to teach you how a DLL file works. So I'm going to Eli 5 that shit up real good. So when you're writing a program, an exe file, right, assuming you're on Windows, most people will write a program that contains their code. But what if they want to do something common, like printing or, putting up a dialog box, whatever you want to call it? Well, this is where they call upon DLLs. DLLs are libraries, dynamic link libraries that contain code that can be used between multiple programs. So again, it can go all the way from something simple like issuing a dialog prompt, all the way up to things like 3D rendering. DLL files exist just as a way to consolidate and a way for different programs to utilize functionality that is pretty standard and common across the board. So it wasn't the program that was hacked, it was the program when launched would call upon these DLLs for a, function it needed, and that function was malicious. So of course, in this case, the function that was malicious over here was in fact that D3D compiler 47 and ffmpeg DLL. Now what they would do is they would effectively go and try to pull files from a GitHub account So this one in particular was downloading these icon files, which contained base64 strings. Now these base64 strings, which were usually encoded, once they were decoded, allowed these programs to download actual, malware, so actual applications that they could launch on their computers, and then the hack would happen. They would connect to a command server, and then all the bad things would happen. They would be connected to their North Korean enemies, and they could do whatever they wanted. Now, the InfoStealer malware that would be launched on your computer would effectively harvest information from your web browsers. So they would open up your multiple browsers. So they would look through Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Brave, Mozilla, basically the most popular browsers, and they would start pulling off your information, your user profile. So that's the one thing that they were going for particularly. Now, even before this had happened during this attack, there were a lot of antivirus softwares that were picking this up too. So around March 22, 2023, even in their forums, some of the users were looking around and saying, hey, is anybody seeing this with other antivirus vendors? So they were literally saying, so some of the actual malware were saying that penetration framework or shellcode was detected. So again, even within this entire situation, people were confused. They were like, is this a false positive? And generally, false positives happen all the time in antivirus software. Typically, if a program does something shady, it doesn't mean that it's a virus, it just means it's tripped something that the antivirus is looking for. Now, false positives, while they happen all the time, this is something that's known as alert fatigue. So for instance, if every day you're getting a little warning on your computer that this is an infection, and you pretty much believe that this is a false positive because the company tells you, listen, we're doing something that the antivirus softwares don't like, nobody's whitelisting it, so it's a false positive, trust us, bro. So one user even asked the 3CX team, hey, the more people both using 3CX and Sentinel-1 got the same problem. Wouldn't it be nice if you guys contacted them and figured out if this is a false positive? And even the developer for this tool was like, hey, while that sounds ideal, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of antivirus solutions out there. And we can't always reach out to them when an event occurs. We use the Electron framework for our app, same framework that Discord uses. Perhaps they are blocking some of the functionality. As you probably understand, we have no control over the software and the decision it makes, so it's not exactly in our place to comment over it. So again, while people were worried, this did raise the question that maybe they should be looking into this even further. And thankfully, we looked into this false positive further, which had stopped this from being as bad as you would imagine. Eventually, after some back and forth, it was pretty much confirmed, yeah, we actually did get hacked. And at some moment, the actual entire cybersecurity firms that were looking into it pretty much pointed the finger to a North Korean hacking group known as Labyrinth Kolima, one of their actual apt hacking groups that exist out there. So when we refer to it like this, we're referring to a state-backed hacking group. So these people have pretty much a blank check, the best hardware, some of the best teams to actually launch some of the most devastating cyber attacks all over the world. And because cyber stuff happens behind a keyboard, trying to enforce and arresting these people is downright impossible. Nearly every person on the North Korean cybersecurity team has almost been identified by the FBI. They just can't do anything on it. The FBI can't go to North Korea and put cuffs on people. And North Korea sure as fuck isn't extraditing its cyber operators around the world. No country is. And again, every country is hacking the other country all day, every hour. Right now, there's a crusty agent in the United States launching a cyber attack against somebody else, just like there's a crusty Chinese agent doing the same thing vice versa. We live in a fucked up world, and now we got AI and all that shit to add on to it. Now, at the end of the day, North Korea didn't want to just hack every, company out there. It didn't care. They were trying to effectively hack cryptocurrency companies around. So Kaspersky actually identified that what they were doing was ultimately trying to install something known as GoParam on the victims. And what had happened was, once you would get that final payload on the machines, all right, this actual tool, GoParam, would connect to those same CNC servers that they had actually identified before, which is what allowed them to pretty much point the finger at North Koreans, because it was a tactic that was identified to their groups, as well. Now, when looking specifically at GoParam on those cryptocurrency companies, it doesn't actually seem like anything's been stolen yet. There's still an active investigation. So again, this comes out to why North Korea is doing this in the first place. Now again, a lot of these hacks, the, sad reality is it's not like Hollywood. Most of this stuff is just money oriented. All these companies care about is launching ransomware just so they can collect on money, or they like hacking cryptocurrency wallets just so they can grab money. It's why covering this stuff is sometimes, in my opinion, a bit repetitive, because at the end of the day, human beings are ultimately influenced by that cold hard cash. Of course, when it comes to North Korea, though, they've been having a wild time the last few years, ladies and gentlemen, because it seems as though North Korea has been stealing quite a lot of money. In fact, in 2022, $3.8 billion worth of cryptocurrency was stolen around the world. In fact, if you look closer, ladies and gentlemen, $1.7 billion of that was literally linked to North Korean hackers, which is breaking their entire theft records as well. If you look at actual North Korean hacks, 2018, they stole around $500 million. Went down to about half of that in 2019, slowly rising. 2021, they did $428 million. And then all of a sudden in 2022, $1.7 billion. They've been having a field day just last year. And of course, for North Korea, some of their total exports come up to around $150 million worth of actual goods. So that means if raw metrics are to be taken, most of the money that goes to North Korea is specifically from cryptocurrency. And do you think this money goes to the poor people who are used in propaganda or can't afford even soup to eat? Hell no. It goes to fill Kim Jong-un's fat belly, buy his houses, buy his beach houses, buy those North Korean mansions and those nice North Korean sectors in Pyongyang. You can look at them from Google Maps if you wanted to. And of course, it goes to funneling North Korea's nuclear weapons program. At the end of the day, one simple supply chain attack literally does help finance weapons of mass destruction. Insanity, if you think about it. Real butterfly effect shit. In fact, just a couple days ago, we were looking into how North Korean hackers were actually using cloud mining services, so literally renting computers, to help launder some of their dirty cryptocurrency. In fact, with all this money stolen, I bet you this is going to be the year where we're going to see so many different money laundering attempts from the North Koreans that it's not even funny. You could have a whole season of content that I could upload just about all of that. North Korea has laundered so much money that even the United States has jumped in to actually add money laundering crypto services to the SDN list. The SDN list, ladies and gentlemen, is the sanctions list, the specifically designated nationals and blocked persons list. And in fact, if you look into this group, they've got Tornado Cash, which they have went down and they've added directly to the SDN list itself. And they even added specific cryptocurrency Ethereum addresses that Americans cannot interact with, because once you've been put on the SDN list, the OFAC will not let you fuck with them. You know who else exists on this list? Terrorists, cartel bosses, criminals, world leaders that have been indicted under really serious stuff. So here you can see August 8, 2022, the US Department of the OFAC sanctions virtual currency mixer Tornado Cash, which has been used to launder more than $7 billion worth of cryptocurrency in 2019. And that includes $455 million just from the Lazarus Group, one of North Korea's hacking teams. And of course, if you go right to Tornado Cash, they've got the balls to still be up. In fact, not only do they have the balls right here, they're literally telling you, after those OFAC sanctions, ladies and gentlemen, here's how you modify your wallet so you can bypass some of those disgusting sanctions. This is literally a money laundering website. You know, you ever wonder, like, how do criminals operate so freely? Bro, this isn't even the dark web territory. This is one page you can get onto to launder your cash. And of course, to abide by YouTube's TOS, do not launder money. Laundering money is a federal crime, punishable by years in prison, tons of fines, and your rectum being resized. And it's not just that you have to go for. Chain analysis firms show that these guys are taking advantage of like the DeFi space, the decentralized finance, finding exploits in their software just to take advantage of small bursts of money laundering as well too. You know, things like a couple $100,000s, all right? Now, of course, one big benefit is when crypto falls, North Korea's nuclear weapons program falls, because it's tied to a volatile currency. But ladies and gentlemen, today you learned about a supply chain attack from 3CX, who was pretty much behind it. And again, I guess I should say North Korea is alleged to be behind it. But what are they going to do, sue me? Oh, what are you going to do, extradite me? Bring it on, Kimmy. I'd like to see that shit happen. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, it ended up going right to North Korea, allegedly. And that money while it's in the billions at this point, you can obviously understand why North Korea is trying to hack as many people as it can. It is the largest source of money for the Hermit Kingdom. And hopefully governments crack down on it, it stops, because the moment you can stop North Korea from illegally doing this kind of shit, the quicker their regime falls apart. If it's one thing that's going to bring a change to North Korea, it's going to be the moment when they can stop paying the elites that live in the country and Kim's little empire, or the Jong-un empire, starts crashing to the goddamn ground. Remember, while his great-grandfather was born in the mountains of North Korea, all of a sudden like Jesus, it takes a lack of bribe money, a lack of kickbacks to the North Korean elite, to finally see the empire crumble, and hopefully one day freedom hits the Hermit Kingdom. Again, this video is entirely a butterfly effect scenario, but hopefully you learned something. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mudahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.